What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Viall Files. Very exciting episode today, I think, at least for Rochelle. And hopefully the people listening at home. Dean
Unglert
is our guest today, my dear friend Dean.
He's so nice.
He's so lovely human being. Rochelle has been asking for this episode since the moment I met her.
But very casually, right?
Very casually. She's like, hi, Nick, I'm going to be your producer. Also, I have a couple of good ideas of who you should have for guest. My top three are Dean. And then every week I had to be like, I mean, sure, it'll eventually happen, but like that's low-hanging fruit. I mean, for me in the sense that like he's my friend and
He's
I
your
can
friend.
always
Yeah,
like have
he'll
him
come on
and
whenever.
like... And so anyways, but I wanted to write for the right time, and I think this is a great time, obviously, with his time on Paradise, and I think hopefully people will enjoy it.
It seems like he's really been through like a personal journey too in the past since you've met him.
Yeah, Dean's a really authentic guy, and I think he has the self-awareness as we get into a little bit about taking a unique approach and an authentic approach to this television world and being willing to open himself up for criticism. And so we talk about that with Dean, a little bit about his life and his thoughts on the world, the show, his relationship with Caelynn.
Yeah. You guys have a really nice friendship.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mutual respect between Dean and I. I think Dean and I have a lot of similarities, and I think we have a lot of differences. And kind of like you hope to with someone you're in a romantic relationship with. So even with friends, it's nice to have friends who you relate to and have a lot of similar interests, but also they're good at things that you're not, and you both kind of help each other experience life in a different way. Having friends like that help you get out of your own comfort zone. I know I'm a creature of habit.
Yeah, he invited you to Egypt.
Dean has invited me.
And you said no.
He said, "Can you go to Egypt next week?" It's like, no, I can't. Rochelle also has some opinions on Bachelor in Paradise, which we will get into right after we share some great information with you. Noom. Well,
Noom.
You've heard of Noom before, and if you haven't, you should have. It is such an amazing way to get in shape and lose weight just by learning about healthier habits, Rochelle.
You don't even just learn, you also log the food that you eat. You read articles, you have a support system of other people trying to reach the same goals. It's fabulous.
It is fabulous.
So I use Noom. I have the app on my phone, and all I do is I go on there about 10 minutes a day, log my food, go through these checklists. They make it super easy, and I'm just learning to have healthier habits with food.
I think it's great, and I love how they get in the psychology approach of it and how it teaches you healthy habits.
Exactly.
I mean, it's one thing to know what you should or shouldn't eat, but so much of it has to do with our mindset and our cravings and knowing the right time to eat and what we're eating things with.
And also just having accountability.
Having accountability. So Noom will help you get there. And here's the thing about Noom, and I like it because it's shavings make a pile, kind of, You don't have to get there all in one day. Small steps make big progress. So sign up for your trial today at Noom, noom.com/VIALL. What do you have to lose? Well, Rochelle, wait. Visit noom.com/Viall to start your trial today. That's noom.com/Viall, the last weight loss program you'll need. Well, Rochelle.
Yeah. What'd you think of these 2 episodes?
Honestly?
I know you were bored, right?
It's kind of the same way in Bachelor Bachelorette. It's like, this is the part of the season.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, who's in love?
Right.
Who's here for the right reasons?
Right.
And I find that to be sometimes both boring and at times disingenuous. I don't know. Not for everyone.
Who do you think's being disingenuous?
Not necessarily. I don't know. It's just...
Tell.
No, I don't necessarily. It's just... I don't know. I wasn't,
Yeah. What'd you think of the JPJ Tayshia breakup?
I find that whole relationship somewhat confusing. as we always say, the show's never really over till it's over. And I know there's going to be a special, and we'll kind of reconnect with where's everyone now. So who knows? First, she broke up with Derek. Like the whole Tayshia, just in fairness to Tayshia, she seems to be on a different maturity level than JPJ.
Right. I agree with that, but for some reason, this breakup, I cried the most I've ever cried watching The Bachelor. Isn't that bizarre? I don't know if I was just in a weird place, but I was like, really crying.
I didn't. But I mean, I don't want to say it's bizarre. It touched a nerve.
Yeah, I don't know. Just the way he handled it, I thought he handled it pretty great, where he was just like, okay, thank you, and like walked away.
Listen, I don't know JPJ. He's been loved, and he's gotten some criticism,
right,
and rightfully so. But I don't think he's a bad guy, and he's just a really young, earnest person who truly, I think, is intoxicated by Tayshia.
Right.
I'm not, and he feels these feelings of love, and there's definitely a power dynamic that's all on Tayshia,
right.
And so it's like, I don't know if that's a real relationship, but who knows? Maybe outside of the real world they'll reconnect. I don't know, but it was a cute in that sense. To your point, I guess it's endearing to see the young puppy dog love. You've seen that with JPJ and Dylan this season, where it's just, like some people can call it an obsession. Some people could just say like it's an exciting feeling to feel these incredible feelings for someone you've never felt, to really feel like, how did I get this person? It's an exciting feeling.
Right.
Also heartbreaking when you realize you didn't actually.
Oh, really? Like
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, right. They broke up. And so such a power dynamic. I mean, Tayshia has all the power.
Yeah.
And that's not.
He really laid it out there. Want to get married. Yeah.
It's not a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you think?
Yeah, you're right.
Tayshia's 29 now, 28.
I don't know.
He's 24. That's a pretty significant gap.
Well, and she's been married, and
she's got a lot more life perspective than I think JPJ does. So I think it's just hard to. It's not an even playing field.
What do you think of Demi's like confronting Christian about touching the other women?
I think it's I don't know, like. Again, for me, it's just like, okay, now it was all the drama, who is dating who, and now we're kind of getting back to the couples, right? A lot of like, hey, remember us? We're still dating, and addressing any issues they may or may not have. Again, everyone knows how I feel about the Demi and Christian situation and relationship, and I'm glad they continue to show this relationship as just like any other relationship. And to me, that's all I really care about is in regards to this relationship is normalizing that relationship. And so I liked that. That's really my only 2 cents on that.
Yeah, cool.
Any other real drama about the show? I mean, we have the Dean and Caelynn.
I just thought it was so funny that Connor was like, said that Caelynn interrupted him talking with Whitney at the wedding. Like he was upset about that.
I mean, again, I think it's Connor is also young, and I think it's easy to make the mistake of coming across as kind of somewhat hypocritical in that world. Right. I don't. Again, I'm sure Connor has the best intentions, and it's just. You're easily influenced by your insecurities in that world. And I think you're probably seeing a lot of that that's what you saw with JPJ and Derek, and you probably see that with Connor and Dean. Yeah. And the reality is that Dean and Derek are both older and more mature than Connor and JPJ. And that has nothing, like, that's not a criticism. That's just a reality of their age, and they also have the experience in that world, so they're more mature. And there's a lot of it's intimidating, I think, and I think you see that being projected in some of the shade that's being thrown by Connor and JPJ.
Right. You and Colton hung out this week, huh?
Well, I did see Colton. Colton was awarded the Grace Rose Award for his work in the cystic fibrosis. I've realized over the weekend that cystic fibrosis is hard to say. I had to say it a bunch of times.
It's not the cutest.
I had the pleasure of introducing Colton as he accepted this award. Mm-hmm. It was a great event. through you and your sister and Caelynn, I've become more and more familiar with obviously the cystic fibrosis community and the challenges that the people that face. And again, it's just, they talked a lot about, what I became aware of on this. Not only is the disease itself an issue, but just the mental health aspect that plays a role, not only to the person diagnosed with the disease, but the family. I mean, in essence, you're basically given a death sentence early in someone's life, and then, a death sentence and knowing that it's going to be shorter than you had hoped or expected your life to be. And then it's just like, when is this day going to come? You're kind of trying to constantly extend that. And as a young person, knowing that your life will be shortened, I truly can't imagine. And so the anxiety and depression and mental challenges that come with that is eye-opening. And so,
like, I have anxiety all the time, like, that I'm not spending time with her because I'm like, I don't know how
time
long she's going to have. But I mean, at the same time, any of us, but like, she is a doctor, so she doesn't have any time. And then I get mad at my mom. I mean, it's just like, it's a nightmare.
It can be tough. So again, Grace, Rose, Colton, a lot of people are trying to do great things in this very unfortunate world of cystic fibrosis, and without, honestly, money. And they talked a lot about that over the weekend. They've done a lot of research and some amazing things through cystic fibrosis, with cystic fibrosis and the research they've done, and they can't do it without people's contributions. So if you are willing and have $1 or more to spare, we will put a link on our page where you can find us for LA's finest walk, the purple carpet.
And you can buy tickets actually and hang out.
I'll be there.
Nick will be there. He's nominated. It's Friday, November 8th. And the ticket money goes to help with research.
We're still far away from reaching our goal.
Yeah, we're at $500. Our goal was $5,000.
We're at 500?
Yeah.
Come on, people. I mean, trust me, if everyone who's listening donated $1, we would we would
far exceed.
So if you could, that'd be great. It would $1. There's a link in our bio, and we'll even put it on our Instagram. So go check it out. It's really simple, and
I really appreciate
people like Rochelle's sister and Grace Rose and all the thousands of young kids and people suffering from this disease. I'm sure would appreciate longer lives.
Yeah.
So, with that said, Dean Unglert. Raycon. I just think it's great when someone in the music industry comes up with a product that you can listen to music.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, it's real simple. Raycon is just a very affordable way to have wireless headsets in your ear for a fraction of the price that you would spend on other wireless headsets. I mean, it's right.
Yeah. I have a pair that I love. I wear them when I'm hiking, when I'm working out. I listen to podcasts when I'm hiking.
Mm-hmm. They're stylish. They're discreet. I mean, I do know they have fun colors.
Oh, yeah.
Which
very comfortable.
I mean, I think the biggest thing about Raycon is they are a more affordable option for the same quality experience of listening to music, and designed by someone who knows what they're talking about.
Ray J.
So to get your Raycon, go to buyraycon.com/Viall to get 15% off your order. That's buyraycon.com/VIALL for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. If you've been eyeing a pair, now is the time to get an amazing deal. One more time, buyraycon.com/VIALL. Well, Rochelle, how is your new article couch doing now you're breaking it in? Have you had sex on it? Yeah.
I haven't, but it's on my to-do list.
There you go.
It's very soft and supple, so I'm sure it's
soft
great.
And supple. Hopefully that's not the only supple thing.
Oh, no.
In your living room. What can we say about article? Me, you, Shug, all have article couches.
I mean,
contemporary, stylish, affordable.
Yeah, I'm going to buy all my future furniture through them. They just make it so easy. They deliver right to your home, and they'll help you set it up. And if there's a problem, you can return it.
I mean, it's not only do you won't need to, but an incredible full service experience.
Yeah.
I've been an Article customer for over 2 years now, and I will continue to be for some time now. Well, Article is offering our listeners $50 off their first purchase of $100 or more. To claim, visit article.com/Viall. Go to article.com/Viall, and the discount code will be automatically applied at checkout. That's article.com/VIALL to get $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more.
That supple couch.
Get that supple couch at Article. Dean Unglert. Unglert.
It's a tough one.
How are you, my friend?
Have we started?
Yeah, now we're starting.
Is there like a lead-in song or anything?
There will be, yeah.
Cool.
But we're going to do an intro, and depending on how well this goes, we will talk about that to say, well, maybe you should tune in, maybe not, or this is going to be a really
How do
exciting
you not
episode.
know his last name?
I just know I do, but I just kind of mumbled as I sometimes do with words, and then Unglert. Dean Unglert, thanks for coming, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
So nice to have you.
It's great to be here.
I think you're, Dean's are my fourth male guest? Fourth or fifth?
You've had Brad, you've had Tyler, you've had...
Straight male, though.
Chris Harrison.
I'm
not keeping track or anything, but yeah.
No, Dean's
all I
sad.
know is I'm not the first.
You are not. Well, you also have a competing podcast. Do you want to plug it quick?
Yes, if you're listening to this and you need some dating advice, be sure to tune in to Help I Suck at Dating on iHeartRadio or wherever you subscribe to podcasts.
And then come back here for the right answer.
Oh, right.
No, I'm just kidding. Dean has become a very close friend of mine. I really quite enjoy Dean. You know, with people, we always get asked about who we're friends with in Bachelor Nation, and I always kind of tell people it's like working at any company. There's some people you like and seem fine. They're acquaintances. There's some people you grow really close with, and there's some people you choose to avoid. Mm-hmm. And Dean is someone who I've grown to quite love and care for.
Thanks, man.
You're an interesting person, and you're a free spirit. And I find I feel like you and I relate to each other in terms of you seem to have this thing inside you that kind of wants to go against the grain as much as possible, and I appreciate that about you. And you're also very smart.
Wow.
So I look forward to getting into it with you.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Just to kick things off.
Can we go back?
So formal.
Can we go back and redo that? Because I said that weird.
No, but great.
You're right. And I do feel like generally speaking, I'm a smart guy. It's hard to hang out with you because I often feel like my intelligence is dwarfed by you, and you say these big words I don't understand, and I just pretend like I know what you're talking about. So if you ever see me just kind of like eyes glaze over or anything like that, just carry on and I'll try and figure out.
But you know what the trick is, Dean? I just sometimes use big words that I've heard before, and I'm banking on the fact that a lot of people around me won't know what they mean, and it'll just sound smart.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I'll tell you this right now, it's working.
Yeah. You're a really smart guy. You're and you have a lot of you're very self-aware. And I think more than anything, that's what I appreciate about you. I think especially in both, I guess, our society in general, it's harder and harder to find. I think LA, it's even harder. And I think sometimes in Bachelor world, self-awareness can be lacking for some of the other obstacles and pressures that people face. And I think you've always been really good at that and really honest about your flaws. You seem to be, when I talk to you, the first to admit about something you're not good at, and I think we saw a lot of that this season, which I really appreciated.
Thanks. I think it was kind of one thing that took a while for me to grow into, and I was actually thinking about this just yesterday a little bit about how I think Bachelor specifically kind of lacks self-awareness, the individuals in it, and I was thinking about why that is and why people are like that. And I was like trying to reverse engineer it, and I go back to the idea that, everyone that goes onto the show initially is just like a regular, decent looking human being who has a good job somewhere in probably like Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, New York, wherever it is. And then you come off the show and you have all of this attention, and you're letting people like inflate your ego so much to where you start believing into the things the hype that people are saying about you.
You have too much access to other people's opinions that you don't know.
Right. And I think that so many people fall prey to that, and they start to believe the own hype that other people are saying about
And then and then we kind of all start, it's like high school, and we all start, we're competing, especially now with social media. You see that with, there's, and we've all kind of gotten caught in the middle of it, and sometimes we take jabs at each other, and then we're just like, we kind of regret doing that.
Yeah.
And then we get told a lot of people will come up and they'll feed us information, and we kind of believe that our own bullshit sometimes. Right. It can get tough.
So then for me, the interesting thing was coming off The Bachelor the first time, I was like super hyped up. Everyone just loved me, and like all my friends. I even had like an ex-girlfriend reach out, and she goes, "Dude, it's so hard seeing all this hype around you because like you're not that cool."
Oh.
And I'm like, I know, I don't understand it either. And then honestly, one of the best things that happened to me was like the whole Paradise. Is this a family podcast?
You
can swear.
You want.
Yeah.
The fuck boy thing that I underwent during Bachelor in Paradise. Honestly, was one of the better things that could have happened to me, because if there was a spectrum of fuck boy. If there's a spectrum of Bachelor in Paradise Dean to Bachelorette Dean, I would fall closer to the Bachelor in Paradise Dean just as a regular person. So like that was a more closely accurate depiction of who I am than Bachelorette. Who like,
did you make you feel safer to like just kind of be out in the world?
Yes, 1000%. When Bachelorette was airing and all of the hype was building, I was like almost scared to leave my house to a degree, because I was like, I'm not this person. I'm not this like angelic choir boy who like wants to marry right now and have like. I can want those things, but I'm not. That's not who I am.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you. Again, the show will silo you, especially in The Bachelorette or Bachelor, and then you just become this one thing, right? And you feel that pressure. I saw Tyler recently, and we were talking.
Tyler C, everyone.
And I was joking with him, and he kind of made a comment about recently he's gotten just slight heat in the press, because it was like he couldn't possibly live up, and we've joked on this podcast about Tyler C is great, but also just a guy. And I don't know everything about Tyler, but I'm willing to bet, like you, and like me, and like all of us, he's a guy with attractive qualities and unattractive qualities, and he's done things to be praised for, and he's done things, I'm sure, to be criticized for. And sometimes when you get all that love and adoration, it can be very challenging to, like, what if people realize I've like was rude to someone? Something so trivial. It can be challenging.
Well, then so to tie it back into the self-awareness thing is, once you see like the people build you up for something that you maybe don't necessarily see in yourself, then you just start to like self-deprecate, and you're like, this is who I am, and you're either going to like me for this or you're not going to like me at all. And if you like me, great. If you don't like me, that's fine too. But I'm not going to like pretend to be something that I'm not. And I think that's kind of where, because this whole self-awareness thing, in my opinion, for me, has only really happened over the past like year and a half, maybe a little bit less.
So yeah, that. I mean, how long have I known you?
A year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
That's it? Oh, yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I guess to that point, I've only known you for a long, and I've kind of, it was after obviously the Bachelorette and right before you went on Paradise, but I appreciate you've done that, and I can relate to what you're saying, but it's the opposite. I was on the opposite side where I got all the criticism, and that sucked, but it was almost better coming up, and that gave me a lot of perspective, because for all the people who were losing their shit about just a tiny bit of criticism, I was like, that's nothing, man, and you still see it where everyone's very defensive over a little bit of stuff, and I still get defensive, right. But you see that people just freaking out over nothing, and then you look at, Luke S had a tough week, so to speak. Like I felt bad. It was a tough couple episodes, and probably undeserved. But like most of the people who go through that show who get bent out of shape for something don't have to deal with that type of kind of portrayal.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, I mean like not getting a rose, and like it was kind of an unnecessary poke at Luke S.
They're not getting the rose?
Well, he was giving out the rose.
He was giving out a rose, and no one wanted it. You've never seen that before. It was, ugh.
Well, you can kind of commend Brie for at least declining to accept the rose from him, though, could you not?
No, listen, all I'm saying is he really got punched in the gut, and that sucks. But other people who like will sometimes say or do something that they said or did, and they don't necessarily like how it got, how it came across, will freak out, and it's nothing compared to say like that situation.
Right. I agree with what you're saying, and what I've noticed too is, and what I've kind of become a big advocate of is like owning your convictions, and if you kind of put those out there before anyone else can, then you're like taking ownership of those things and accountability for those things. And so like whenever anyone else then drags you for that, you're just like laughing at yourself, and you're laughing at them doing it. Like it's just a group laughing at the situation rather than like taking the burden on yourself.
It's like Eminem in 8 Mile.
Yeah.
You know, you
I am white. I do have a friend named Cheddar Bomb who shot himself in the leg.
Yeah. Right? So when you say like owning up to your conviction, I mean, can you elaborate more on that? I mean, obviously just beating people to punch, but like what are the things that you going in this time, do you have conviction about that you felt, I'm just going to put this on the table? Other than just wearing scrubs down to the beach, which I really, really liked. It really set the tone for, honestly, I don't care.
I'll get into it a little bit, and I'll try my best to explain it. So my experience, both of us have been on this show quite a number of times. I think we equal each other's count at 4.
4.
See that?
Let the record show.
Record show.
With that, though, funny enough, is I've been in more relationships from the Bachelor franchise than you have.
Also true.
Right. In my experience,
because I've avoided them more than like I was.
You have. You very actively avoid them, which is probably for the best.
I'm saying that with a sensitive heart because I get sensitive of the I got dumped and But anyways, being defensive.
You're in a precarious situation just because you got dumped twice. And then you were the Bachelor. It's like you can't really date in the franchise after being the Bachelor. You can't.
Well, the whole like getting dumped twice was like I took second twice in 2 seasons, and somehow that became the.
Yeah, it's actually a good thing, everybody.
I'm not saying it's good, but like everyone else got dumped too, man. But anyways, continue.
Oh yeah, that season where Nick got dumped. Well, 28 other guys did too. What I've noticed is in this franchise especially, and it's funny, it goes back to our earlier conversation about self-awareness, is there is a heavy saturation of misrepresentation of self. And so people will like, on the show, you can say all these things about who you are and what you do and what you believe and what you want to do and like all your plans and all your goals. But it's easy to say that within that bubble because there's no way to like necessarily fact check the things people are saying about themselves. And then you get out of that and you realize those things don't necessarily align with what they're saying. And so coming into Bachelor in Paradise season 6 for the 2nd time in Paradise, 4th time in total, I was like, I'm just going to absolutely undersell the shit out of myself. I'm going to say, I'm unemployed, I'm homeless, I have this ridiculous mustache, I'm basically wearing clothes that I haven't washed in months.
Not basically.
I'm going to show the absolute worst side of myself.
And it still is going to be okay.
And that way that if I leave, obviously this is day 1 going into Paradise. If I leave with someone from Paradise, I don't want to leave with anyone. But if I do, then they're going to be pleasantly surprised coming out of the show because they're going to realize that all of these, like when I was talking to Caelynn on the first day or second day, I was like telling her, I was like, look, I don't want to hang out with your friends. I don't have any friends. No one wants to be my friend. I was telling her these things. I didn't air any of this stuff. I was convincing her that I had 0 friends.
There's a reason why.
And she was still like, that's weird that you don't have any friends, but like, okay. And
wow.
I was like literally showing the absolute worst sides of myself. So that way when we got off the show, she would be pleasantly surprised by all of the things that she could like actually be like, oh, that's actually really nice that you have friends and that you actually, in a weird way, you do have a job of sorts. You make money. You can travel freely, all these things.
I'm going to tease you a little bit, but I want to follow up with something else. Well, is that in a way manipulative?
It might be.
A little bit, maybe.
I could see why you would say that. Yeah, I don't think it personally is, but I could see why
giving you a hard time. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think that is great, and that it's hard to do. We talked about on Monday's episode of, I think, real confidence is admitting insecurities and pointing out what you are worried, what people are thinking about you. Like I know you're a free spirit and you're very independent, but are any of those things that you actually have insecurities about being different, about like being non-traditional? I know you've talked a little bit about your childhood and growing up, and it's very again, non-traditional, are those things that you sometimes get insecure about when people, holidays come up and talk about family and all they're doing? Is that something that...
I think if you were to ask me that question a year ago, I would have said absolutely yes. I would get insecure about it. But now I don't. And I think part of that comes from owning all of that stuff. And this is like, it's a new thing for me, right? Like I've never really been proud of my family dynamic before up until just recently. Even I was actually just thinking about this the other day too, is one of the biggest things that I dislike that people say to me, that they've been saying a lot to me lately, is Dean's turning out to be like his father. I hate that.
Why? Well,
yeah.
Because it's like you're basically implying that me turning out like my father is a bad thing.
Right.
Which, sure, my father has his issues to sort through and to deal with. We all saw that on my hometown. But you using me turning out like my father as an insult is kind of frustrating for me. You know what I mean?
That can be hard. Also, good or bad, I mean, my guess is I don't know much of anything about your father. Mm-hmm. I do know that, like...
Nor do I.
I do, like, through you're living in a van. Your dad also has or does.
He lives in an RV now, yeah.
He lives in an RV. Uh-huh. Your childhood was very much kind of like that, and so they're comparing to that. But in terms of qualities and how he had treated his friends and relatives versus you, I mean, I don't know. I've never met your dad, but do you think I think there's those comparisons that you get defensive about?
I think they're just going from the aesthetics of it all. Like he grows out a mustache, grows out his hair.
They 100% are, but I'm wondering, do you get defensive about you thinking about the person, not the aesthetics?
It's weird because despite the disconnect between my father and I still go to bat for him publicly like that. Like I don't want...
As you should.
Of course.
I don't think other people should be talking shit about my father, right? Yeah. Like I can talk shit about my father all I want, but not other people.
I feel the same way.
It's like when you're in a relationship sometimes and your girlfriend or boyfriend is constantly nagging at you. I will say I've had more than a couple girlfriends who were more on the naggy, aggressive... critical side of things.
Really?
I will say this about them though. When it was other people talking about me, they would fucking go to bat. Nice. It was always those people who were like the most. They'll tear you down.
Right.
But anyone else, they would stab them. If they were ever.
And you like that? You like to see that?
I
right?
do. Well, I like the latter part. I like the loyalty. Yeah. I would like to have it not come with a significant price, but that's neither here nor there. But it is nice with when you're close to. You don't want other people talking shit.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. What was, I guess, the initial question that we were trying to answer there? Because when I think about it in my like alternate lifestyle choices that I make, I think that I look back to my childhood, and obviously I think that's a big part of it, right? Like,
yeah.
When I was really young, from 1 year old until 4 years old, so for 3 years of my life, we lived in an RV. My family did. My father bought a school bus, basically ripped everything out of it, converted it into a living space. So there's 5 beds in this school bus, 40-foot long school bus that we lived in and traveled in for 3 years until we eventually settled in Colorado.
How many siblings do you have?
4. I have 3, so there's 4 of us total, and then the 2 parents. So there was 6 of us.
Good sized family.
It's big. It was big. Well, you have way more than that, but
still, that's not like And then that lifestyle it makes it.
Yeah, we were super like transient, and like we sold temporary tattoos. My father like panhandled for cash on the side, like at stoplights, in order to like pay our bills, a bunch of stuff like that. And then it's funny because I was thinking about this just the other day as well, where when I was younger, like late single digits, early preteens, whatever, one of like the biggest unifying ideas that we had as a family was we were always like, oh yeah, remember that time we lived in the school bus for 3 years, and like that was like this weird thing that brought us together that basically like defined our family. And then, so now it's just like, I think it's kind of like coming a full circle for me to be like, oh, I'm going to live in a van now, because like I have this comforting feeling of doing that from when I was a kid, and how it kind of like bonded all of us as children.
How long are you going to do the van thing?
If I can make it a year, I'm going to be happy. So if I started June 28th, 2019, if I make it June 2020, I'll be happy. Do
you feel like, I've talked about this before on other shows, just comparing your ability to travel alone and so independently, I am very envious of, because I couldn't do that on multiple levels. I wouldn't know how to, listen, if I had to, I could, but I don't know how to plan something like that. Just to do it. I would have constant anxiety from beginning to end.
But that's strange for me, because you're so comfortable being alone.
Not really, though.
I think that
I
are,
like
though.
being with people. I've become comfortable with being alone, but I often feel lonely. When I feel lonely, I seek out.
Yeah, he talked.
I seek out company, and I like, but I'm comfortable being alone, like sitting on my couch watching football, doing questions with Nick.
Yeah.
Right. But when I'm sharing a new experience, I want to be able to share it with someone. And even when you travel, what I find fascinating is your ability to, like, I'm just watching your Instagram. Like, you seem to be around people. You're always finding people so freely. And just when I've gone out with you, you're more open than I am out in public, and I find that to be really. I'm envious of that of you. What makes you able to do that? And is it because of your childhood that has allowed you to kind of just roll with the punches, so to speak, in a kind of whatever comes our way kind of mentality?
I will say, whenever people ask what my favorite characteristic about myself is, I respond with my ability to adapt to new environments pretty well. Whether that's like going to college or living in Los Angeles or traveling by myself or going out to bars with friends or whatever it is. I think that the biggest defining moment in my life as like a socialite was when I was 18. I got a job at a hotel, the Ritz-Carlton in Aspen, as a bellman. And they put you through this like very strenuous like HR onboarding process. It's like 2 weeks long. And they're like, we're just going to make you like the most charismatic person we possibly can, because that's what the guests want. They want someone charismatic that you can converse with, etc. And I worked at that hotel for 3 years. And I literally attribute my ability to like carry conversations or like be interesting in terms of like,
when to turn it on.
Yes. And I thank the Ritz-Carlton in Aspen Highlands for that.
That's amazing.
That's a great skill.
I mean, you think about it. It's an education. They were willing to train you and
pay me too, which is great.
That's pretty great.
So that's kind of what I attribute that ability to. And it's interesting to like look back and kind of find the origin point for that. But nowadays it's like, it's funny because I look back at my time when I was like 18, 19, et cetera, in college, whatever. And like, you still struggle with your identity when you're in college, especially. And so I was like trying to find my friend group, all of that kind of stuff. And while I was still finding it, I spent a lot of time alone as like a freshman, sophomore in college, whatever. And at the time I was like terrified to go eat by myself, or I was terrified to like go to the store by myself. And just because I didn't want other people like criticizing me or like being judgmental of me being by myself. And now as a 28-year-old, I'm like, I would almost prefer to go to dinner by myself.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, with Baby Becca and her podcast host, Jess, about, being alone and loneliness. And we talked a lot about having like date night with yourself, which I would like when I was younger. The idea of going to a movie by myself was like, I'm a loser, but not a total loser.
There's like a negative connotation to it.
I still don't love going to movies by myself, but at dinner by myself, totally fine.
Yeah.
And when I moved to a new city, I was like sitting up, even like a nice like steak place, sitting at the bar by myself is actually.
Well, you've told me some stories about you in Chicago, like because you obviously didn't know many people in Chicago.
I didn't know anyone.
Yeah,
and
that's tricky.
It's tricky, but when you do it, you give yourself the freedom, you give yourself permission to do it because you're not judging yourself. You have this built-in excuse of, well, I don't know anyone, as opposed to a city in which you have all these friends, but they're all busy. And you're like, well, I'm only here because no one wants to hang out with me. Right. And then you've inside, it's all comes.
It's the story you tell yourself.
No one else knows at the restaurant. Even if they did, they're like, I bet that guy's friends don't want to hang out with him tonight. Like, that's not happening. They're all just like, why is this really, if it was you, like, this handsome guy just by himself, wow. Man, that guy, he's confident. He's just waiting for the women to walk up.
He's just oozing the confidence.
Where did you go to college?
University of Colorado, Colorado Springs.
What was your major?
Business. What was it? Business management.
What is your least favorite thing about yourself?
Oh, that's a great question.
I mean, that you attribute from your childhood, I guess, since your favorite thing was your ability to adapt.
I mean, I've got pretty severe attachment issues, so I think that's probably my biggest issue
in terms of you push people away.
Yeah.
How's Caelynn doing, by the way?
Am I allowed to be?
I don't know. Are you?
Oh no! What did they tell you?
Honestly, I don't even know where we're at right now.
So you guys are together. Great.
When does this episode air?
Wednesday.
Yeah, we're together.
Yeah.
I mean, her silhouette's been all over your Instagram.
What do you mean?
The worst kept secret.
I know. We got to a point where we were just like, you know what? As long as we're not posting pictures with the other person in it, we're just gonna go ahead and keep doing our.
I mean, on my season of Paradise, Amanda and Josh were on the cover of Us Weekly like mid-season. So I think with Paradise,
they care less.
They care less, and there's multiple storylines. And while you guys are wonderful, you're not the storyline.
And we're not engaged.
You're not engaged.
But I do remember we were on a flight back from Italy a month ago, and we landed at LAX, and I opened my phone, and I had like 100 texts and like a bunch of Facebook or Instagram tags, and there was like E! News ran an article about Dean and Caelynn dating, and we were like, well, what the hell? Like, the show hasn't even began airing yet. Yeah, they were like taking pictures of us walking through Venice or like on the airplane and stuff like that. And so it was weird that like our relationship was spoiled, not by like some small spoiler page, but E! News like ran an article saying like Dean and Caelynn are dating.
In fairness, you guys could have been doing some sort of Bachelor appearance in Italy. In Italy, you never know.
And the interesting thing about that is E! News is like an ABC correspondent in a sense, right? So like, you don't have to think like ABC almost greenlit them to run that story,
right?
I mean, I don't know for sure, but my understanding is they try to work with them.
Yeah,
in that sense, they are an independent news entity, so
they're still going to run it if they want.
They're going to make their own decisions, but I think they're always. It's kind of like, well, they're also just one entity. Like if everyone's reporting on something, they're not always getting permission, but I think they try to work with them, I guess.
Wasn't there like a tattoo picture you posted with her at a tattoo parlor?
Well, I didn't post it, but I guess the guy sitting across from us took a picture and sent it to TMZ or something like that.
Annoying.
So, with your attachment issues.
Yeah.
What's your longest relationship you ever had?
Maybe just over a year.
Just over a year.
Yeah.
Are you always the one saying, I can't do it? Have you ever been dumped? Have you ever had your heart broken?
Yes, I have been dumped. I have had my heart broken.
Who broke your heart? Someone outside of the show?
You've been obviously in love before. How many times have you been in love?
Why? This is not about me.
Because I want to bring us into this together.
Yeah, you got to be vulnerable. How many
times have I been in love?
Simple question.
How many times have I said I love you to someone?
No, that's not the question. How many times have you been in love?
Well, I guess to answer that question, I meant it every time I said it, right?
Okay, sure.
But those were all different things. The first time I was in love was a feeling I never felt before, and I didn't know how to process those emotions. 1, 2, 3. I mean, 3 outside of Bachelor Nation.
Yeah.
Before. And then I will never take back saying I love you to Andy, Caelynn, or Vanessa. It was in that environment, and there's some outside influences that create this like rush of emotions. Mm-hmm. But in those moments, I truly had those feelings for them, so I don't take it back. It was just different.
Right.
I mean, Vanessa also very different than Caelynn and Andy, because we actually had a real relationship
outside of the show.
And
So for me, I've been in love 3 times. I was in love once as a teenager, once as a young college student, and then once in my mid-20s. And
not now.
Not now. And I'm open about that.
He's open about it.
I'm absolutely willing to share that, and she is well aware of that. But we're working on it. It's a process, And I don't think we're not getting into that right now. Anyways, so your question was, have I been broken up with, or have my heart been broken? I've definitely been brokenhearted before. Like I've been cheated on by girls that I'm in love with many times, and that's heartbreaking. I've been dumped, but what I've done in the past as a weak-willed, weak-minded individual,
you get them to break up with you.
I find ways to make them break up with me.
That's the trick.
Mm-hmm.
What trick?
I mean, I think a lot of men do that more than women. I feel like
100%.
I don't know what the reason is. I guess it's maybe from a cult. Like I don't want to be the bad guy. I would rather have you just be mad at me. Fine, I don't care. So
we're cowards.
Stop
basically.
Sucking. I'll start sucking as a boyfriend. And that way I'm not the bad guy, and then you broke up with me.
Right.
And so it's pretty, guys do it a lot. I've talked with a lot of people of all ages about just get them to break up with you.
Right. And so what lately in my later adult life, I've been more like, I'm putting my foot down and I'm ending this relationship because I'm not getting what I need. And clearly you're not getting what you need either.
Good for you.
To that point, that's great, because that is a more mature and brave thing to do, because you're taking accountability for your own actions and saying, you know, you might hate me for this, but I'm going to be honest. And again, we've talked about this on the show before. It's like, you have to be honest even when it's hard to do, because people often say, well, I didn't want to tell you because I thought you'd be mad.
Yeah.
And that's not thinking about the other person. That's only thinking of yourself and trying to avoid an awkward situation.
Right.
And so you're taking accountability and ownership for how you feel and allowing that person to hate you, because they might say, fuck you, Dean, or I hate you, you're selfish, you've changed. All this, like all those things inevitably come from sometimes telling someone how you feel about a situation is hard to do.
But my experience with that too is I'm always kind of blown away by the reaction that you receive from doing something like that, when it's very clear that both people in the relationship are not happy. And it's like, how are you going to get upset with someone for ending something that you didn't want to be in the first place? You know what I mean?
That rejection trigger.
Yeah, I think those are just feelings and hurt, and then you're trying to process it. And your ego's, I mean, if you're not thinking about that. Right. Think of all the relationships that are out there when you're broken up with, and you're pining over this person that, fast forward right before you broke up, all you were doing was bitching about them to your friends.
Right.
And people always do that. Like men and women both do that. And then you're like, as the friend, you're like, you didn't even like them, but oh my God, no, they were sweet. And you start defending them because you got broken up with, and you're trying to justify the relationship that you know, it's all ego driven. Right. So it's...
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, like when people get in the van and they have the camera on them and they're like, it's never about like, oh, I'm so sad this person broke up with me, I really love them. It's always like, this always happens to me. Right. Yeah. I'm never good enough. Like
everyone always says I'm such a catch. Why am I still alone?
Yeah,
we thought it was Sydney.
Yeah, because you're always trying to validate. It's like, what the fuck?
It's rejection.
You know? Like when you get cheated on, this whole thought of, why would someone cheat on me? It feels like it's like people take it as a reflection of themselves. It really has nothing to do with that, because even in a relationship that's not working, that other person could have ended it before they fucked someone else.
Right.
But it feels like a reflection of you. I mean, I know that's how I felt when I was cheated on. It's just like, really? Why am I not good enough not to be cheated on?
Like, what am I not giving you that someone else is able to?
Yeah. It's like, and then you start fantasizing about like, them being, fuck you with you. And it's all just about your ego. And then you stop. What you're doing is assessing the actual relationship on whether was it healthy or not. You literally, like, people will really just not even look at the actual relationship. It's just about, why wasn't I good enough?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so for me with relationships, especially, I don't know actually how to really phrase this properly, but I've always been very selective of the people that I enter into relationships with. And I think you're very selective as well, rightfully so. It's because like you don't want to, you want to make sure that you're with someone that meshes well with who you are, what you want, and what you see a relationship being, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've become more, and I talked about this before, I fear sometimes I've gotten a little too selective in that sense.
I could almost agree with that. I think you are a little too selective.
And that's just because I don't know what it looks like that I should pursue now. It's like I meet this person, that person. Oh, you're great. I'm very attracted to you, or you're fun to talk. It's harder to just go for it,
right?
And I think I have to try to do that. For me, there's a little bit of having my guard up, or whatever. Part of it too is maybe some selfishness of. I don't want to really commit to this because I'm afraid in 6 weeks I won't feel the way you want me to feel, and then I'll have to have some awkward conversation,
or just get them to break up with you.
Yeah, and I think I have a bad habit, and I don't know if you feel that you do the same, of playing out the early stages of a relationship, and I'll meet someone, and then just be like, well, let's just be friends. And in my head, I'll be like, well, this isn't going to work out. And I don't really know. I haven't really given them or the relationship a shot.
Right. And so for me, the big reason I came back for Caelynn actually to ask her to be my girlfriend was because I did a lot of thinking about it. And I was like, look, I know Caelynn and I aren't a perfect match on paper, right? Like she has all these interests and my interests are way on the other side of the spectrum. And I know that, but I guess I wanted to be able to go back and make like a concerted effort and be like, listen, I know that we don't perfectly align in terms of our values, our interests, our hobbies, whatever it is. But I want to at least put the effort forth, or put forth the effort. Yeah, whatever I said. Because, you know exactly how it is. Like relationships are kind of weirdly like a muscle, right? Unless you work them out, you're never really going to improve on them. You're not going to get better at them. And so this was my mindset. I was like, I'm never going to be a better version of myself in a relationship unless I start trying to be in a relationship.
I totally agree. And listen, all you could have done is be direct with Caelynn, which you did.
But why on her birthday? Or was that planned?
In my defense, it was 3 a.m. the next day, so it was technically the day after her birthday.
You had a track record of giving people birthday cakes and then fucking them, not literally, metaphorically, fucking them over.
In my defense on that, it was a half birthday cake.
Just so you know, you tease them. These girls who like want to have sex with you, I'm gonna give you some cake and then I'm gonna fuck you, and they get excited, and you're like, over. I'm gonna fuck you over. I'm just kidding.
What's funny about the birthday thing with Caelynn was there was a lot of other stuff that I did that they didn't air, which I'm kind of sad about. Like I wrote her some funny poems.
Probably help. That's probably
no. You're right, and honestly,
you would have seemed like a bigger dick.
It softened the blow a little bit. I like shaved off a little bit of my mustache, and I like like when you pluck an eyelash and you make a wish. I like shaved off some of my mustache, and I let her make a wish with that.
Yeah, the show.
It softened the blow a little bit.
Yeah,
and you want to know what's funny actually is I guess you specifically know how much editing can play into the way that people perceive you on the show. And I'm not going to say that my edit has been good in Paradise, but it certainly has been bad. It could have been a lot worse. It's like I watched the show back and I'm like, wow, the editing team is really doing me a solid on this one.
The music was romantic.
It really comes down to music, right? And it's just tone and a feeling. And the show is good at having relatable moments. Sometimes we have all been on the wrong side of them telling their story.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you a good or a bad person. If you really think about the show and what's going on, is anyone doing anything terrible? Like for the person you think, let's say the Luke P of the world, he is bad as he was. I mean, I'm not defending some of his actions, but like we've all in moments in our lives done things that Luke P has done where it was, you know what I'm saying? We've all been there. We've all had our weaker moments. Sure. And so, when people look bad in the show, it's like before you point the finger, so to speak.
Well, and it's just like the attention span of the viewer is so short. It's like in a week, people are going to forget entirely about you. I don't know. It took me a minute to remember who Luke P even was, even though he was such a polarizing figure on his season of The Bachelorette. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he did so many things poorly. But again, like you said, in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. And Wells is a big advocate for this as well. He's like, if you get a bad edit one week, just remember that none of this matters because like people really don't care.
They don't care
for very long.
When people come on, the new people who come on, and unless you're you got top 3 or 4, and even then, and I'll meet them, and then they're always talking about something that they don't like, and I go, I don't mean this to be a dick. I mean this to try to give you perspectives. No one cares, and they don't like. Only you are fixated, and maybe your mom,
right?
But it really doesn't matter. Getting back to, go ahead.
But why the birth? You never answered why the birthday.
Why on her birthday did they break up with her?
Yeah.
Well, how honest do we want to get here?
Honest. That's all what you're about. Authenticity.
I don't know.
There might be some.
Some behind the scenes things.
Okay.
So it was pretty well known on the beach through everyone, through the fellow cast members, through all of production, through Caelynn and me, that I was not going to leave that beach in a relationship with Caelynn. I was very, very clear with every person on the beach. I was like, look, I'm just here to have fun, hang out with you guys. And every single day that I spent on that beach, Caelynn got more and more attached to me like a piece of Velcro.
Like you knew, like, well, we talked before you went on. You weren't coming back with her.
The producers are okay with that. They're like, yeah, you can do that.
I think that the producers thought that I was going to go in, do whatever I do, and get kicked off the next day. They didn't think that I was going to actually form a genuine connection with someone. This is my perception of it. I could be mistaken.
You thought they would. You thought they thought you would be there for a day or two.
They thought that I was going to be like. Again, I could be way off, but this is what I think that they thought, that I was going to be like a gimmick of sorts. Just come in, show up, be there for 2 days, not get a rose because I'm not taking it seriously, get the boot and go home. And I don't know.
I think you're selling yourself a little short.
And that's honestly kind of what I thought too. And so when I was down there and I was telling everyone, I was like, yeah, like this has been fun. I'm having fun, but Caelynn knows that I'm not going to be her boyfriend. She knows that I don't want her to be my girlfriend. Everyone knew that, production, all the fellow contestants. There was a point on the birthday night where I did all these things. We sang her happy birthday. We got her cake. We got her champagne. I wrote her these poems, whatever. And after all of that, I got pulled aside and I was having a conversation with one of my buddies down there. I won't say who it was exactly, but we basically were discussing for a while and we came to the conclusion. We were like, look, like if I'm on that beach, knowing full well that I will not leave that beach in a relationship with Caelynn, the longer I stay there, the more intertwined her feelings get into mine, and like the more attached to me she becomes. And so it makes more sense for me to leave now than to leave in a week and a half, 2 weeks, when her feelings just continue to escalate. And on top of that, I was well aware that there was another guy that she wanted. The first 5 seconds of meeting her, she was like, yeah, I want Connor S to come down to this beach to like take me on a date. She told me that when I walked down the stairs, she was really hoping that I was Connor S. And so she was very upfront and clear that she was interested in Connor coming down to the beach first. And obviously I had known at that point Connor hadn't come down. So I was like, look, I know Connor's coming down at some point. If I'm here and Connor comes down, you're not going to be able to explore that relationship with him because you're going to be like fixated on me. You're going to be torn. You're going to be in this weird triangle. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if I'm here, you won't have the full experience that you want to have. And I'm not going to leave here in a relationship. Connor probably wants a relationship. And so because of all those things, I'm going to leave.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought process to all of it.
What did you think about what Connor said after?
About my van?
Well, like this whole last episode, he was basically saying Caelynn cockblocked him at the wedding.
We'll get to that. Hold on. Yeah. So then you leave, right? And you feel like you needed to get outside of that environment to have a clear train of thought, because it sounds like from beginning it sounds like from the first time you went down there to you left, you had been fixated on this idea that you weren't going to be a relationship. And so having been in that world, you can feel that, like that pressure of, well, I'm committed to this, and how do I, I'm not going to want to be in a relationship. I don't know if I really want to be with Caelynn. Then you leave and then you're outside of that bubble. And that's when you started because you must have known, like you said, if you were going to come back, that she was probably, you don't know what's going on, but probably hanging out with Connor and probably liking him. And, as we saw, you really put her in a tough spot, and then kind of,
yeah,
Connor was a little bummed.
He's a little sour about it. So I flew back. You get your phone back basically the second you get to the airport. Turned my phone on, flew back. Obviously, I didn't have like Wi-Fi or anything on the flight because it was like some cheap international flight, whatever. But I landed in San Diego, which is where my van was parked, even though it was in the shop, whatever, that doesn't matter. And I landed and I texted one of the producers, the one that I was closest with while I was there. And I said, hey man, like I'm really sad. Like I didn't really expect to be this sad. And he sent me this super, super long text back. Like one of the ones that like has to abbreviate itself and then you click on it and then it expands bigger, like a very, very long text message.
That's interesting.
And he was basically like talking me through it. Like has had his fair share of grief that he's dealt with in his life. So he was basically like giving me his advice. And one of the pieces of advice was go to the Grand Canyon and like think about things. And it wasn't like go to the Grand Canyon now and think about things. He's just like at some point in your life, make it to the Grand Canyon because it like provides perspective on your life and, can hopefully like provide clarity for you. And so I was like, fuck it. Like I've got nothing else to do. I'm just going to drive to the Grand Canyon right now. Since my van was in the shop, I had to rent a car, drove directly out there.
See, I can't do that. Good for you. Anyways, go ahead.
And I talked to some of my friends on the way out, and all of them were like, I didn't talk to you, actually, funny enough, even though I probably should have because you probably would have given me the best advice. But two of my really close friends, they were like, don't go back. It doesn't make sense for you to go back. Just wait for her to come off the show in a week and a half. Text her and try and like rekindle things after the show. It's a win-win. If it doesn't go your way, at least it's not advertised and broadcasted to the entire world. If it does go your way, great. You're in the relationship you want to be in anyways. And I got to the Grand Canyon. I started thinking about things. I was like, knowing how attached Caelynn wants to be in a relationship, right? Like she is a relationship girl. It's not a dig at all. It's just like,
that's what she wants.
It's what she wants. That's great. That's perfectly fine. And so I knew that if a guy comes down onto the beach that she's interested in, and that is definitely interested in her, there's no way that they're not going to leave the beach together.
In a relationship.
Exactly. And
You'd have no shot.
Right. And so it's like, sure, maybe we could talk about things, but then I'm having to combat a relationship that she's already in with me trying to like be like pleading my case. You know what I mean? It just didn't make sense. And so from that point, I was like, what do I have to lose? If I go back and I get rejected, at least I put forth the effort to try and have this relationship work out. If I get what I want, which is the relationship, then even better. So it was basically a win-win in my case. Like I was putting my heart out there, I was letting it happen. If I got dumped, rejected, I guess is a better term to use, that's fine. At least I'll have known that was the course of action.
You did the right thing. I think the hindsight is that, it's weird in that world. If you start a relationship on TV, you should try, if you can, to see it through, because even for yourself, because that's how it started and everything else is a bit weirder. Yeah. And then again, regardless of the relationship, I think everyone wanted to see this kind of thought process that you had and this admittance of your insecurities and things you thought about. And even if Caelynn would have rejected you, that would have been probably also a great moment for you.
Putting a good amount of closure, yeah.
Yeah. And just your journey would have continued, so to speak.
Let me ask you this, because on the episode, Christina pulls me aside. She comes out and sits next to me on the daybed and says that it was selfish of me to do what I did to go back. Do you think it was selfish?
I think a lot of people can perceive it that way. I was going to get to that, what your thoughts were about some of the kind of the chat that obviously you weren't privy to when it was going on in real time. I
hated Christina coming over and talking to me.
I could have.
And then when she said, she's like, when he hurts you, call me or something. Remember when?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Christina got really mad at me for calling her out on this podcast. I didn't read it, but I've heard her fans were not so much. So I'll just leave it alone. But listen, I think Christina's getting. I've said this. I think she's getting a pretty accurate edit this season in terms of someone who constantly is
inserting themselves.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of weird that she did that. And I think she's very smart and clever and knows always what she's doing. Right?
Yeah.
I listen, could it be selfish? Sure. I mean, only you know the answer to that, I guess is the point, right? Sometimes just like thinking a big picture, people often, minus this TV world, when people break up with someone and they come back, they often do it because they're bored or lonely. Lots of times with questions with Nick, I'll get these questions and my quick response is, oh, he came back, what should I do? It's just like, well, just as long as you know, he tried to find something better, didn't, and now he's bored and came back. That's generally the answer, and that often happens. Every situation is different, right? In your case, you went to the Grand Canyon. I mean, you really thought about this. Caelynn could still get hurt. There's some selfishness that sure is going on. You are thinking about your feelings and you are being honest with her in the sense that, but you're being honest with her in such a kind of intoxicating way of you're kind of at the same time telling her you're special. You're the one I want to try to be a better man for, which everyone, guy or girl, wants to hear. Again, all you can do is be honest with her, and like you said this on the show, you might get hurt. She could get hurt. You don't know. There's no guarantees when you're going back in a relationship. I know you as a person, so you try to be as honest as possible. And I know you have a kind heart and you care about the hearts of the people around you. But were you thinking about your needs? Of course, you were going down to the beach. That doesn't mean that you don't have a right to. And she could have also said no.
Right. That was my take on it. Was I don't think it was selfish because at the end of the day, it was her decision to either say yes or no, right? So I don't really see how there could be a selfish.
And again, you didn't necessarily like. And when I give those examples on like Q&A or whatever, it's like you didn't like break up with Caelynn because you want to date other people. You know, like in the real life, you're in a relationship and you're monogamous, and then you break up because you want to explore other things. That's not your case. Right. Every situation is different. So do I think overall you were selfish? No, but like I can see why people say that. And in a sense, you were thinking about your needs. All you can do is be honest. I do think sometimes when breakups happen, people feel like they have to take sides, right? And so I think you're just seeing a little bit of that. If you guys don't work out, I mean, you just might not work out, and who knows?
But it was back to the original thought of leaving. It's funny how this might sound kind of selfish or like self-deluded, but like how perfect everything worked out for me for leaving the show. It worked out perfectly.
How what do you mean?
I left the show. The next day was a wedding. Chris and Crystal got married. I like Chris and Crystal. I didn't want to go to that wedding. I didn't want to go that way.
I heard
That's
it wasn't
funny.
super fun.
Why?
It was because it was a wedding as well as a TV production, which
it was a long day.
It was more of a TV production than a wedding, so there was no music.
right.
Oh.
I had exes at that wedding. Like I missed seeing my exes at the wedding, which was fantastic.
You really navigated some landmines. How many exes did you have at the wedding?
All of them.
3. I got to see the Grand Canyon. I got to come back into Los Angeles and record 2 episodes of my podcast, Help I Suck at Dating. If you guys want to subscribe, be sure to do that. I got to record 2 episodes of my podcast, and then I got to fly back to Mexico and get my girlfriend.
Hell yeah.
Like it couldn't have gotten any better than the way that it went.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, all jokes aside, you what you were is you honest with yourself, and you were not afraid of criticism, because in the moment, you say that now with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
But when you left on her birthday, clearly you knew that you could be seriously criticized.
Yeah.
When you're choosing to come back, you probably knew, I don't know how this is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
When you're showing up with a mustache, well, that's a risk. So, you know what I'm saying? Like you did things unafraid of looking bad, and usually that's when people tend to look good.
It is a weird thing experiencing this whole process, knowing that there's a happy ending, like knowing that there's going to be lows, but then at the end of the tunnel, it's going to be positive. And I think that was my first experience with that. I'm sure you experienced a lot solely on your season of The Bachelor, where you had like a lot of negative things. People were probably talking shit about you for a lot of things, but you knew at the end of it, you were going to end up in a relationship because you were in the relationships, right? So it's like Caelynn, for instance, she hasn't been through this as many times as I have. And so she was going through a whole lot of her own, difficulties in the beginning of the season airing. And I kept telling her, I was like, you shouldn't be upset about this. Like, yes, be upset about it, but don't dwell on it, because like at the end of the show, at the end of the day, like you're in a relationship and you're happy. Like there's no reason for you to be upset about all of these things that don't matter.
You had to, I think what you're speaking to when you say to me is what you opened up the show with is you had the benefit of the experience of not looking good on your first time in Paradise, right? And then you survived it and you were fine. Yeah. Your life was totally fine. It really didn't make a difference. And so
hindsight, I guess.
You had the benefit of saying, and let's be honest, it's not like you were without criticism this season.
Right.
You weren't like, you didn't show up flawless without people like criticizing you or Team Connor or whatever. Mm-hmm. But overall, people got to see your pros and cons. And that's what people like to see, because I think people are starting to get to see Dean, the human being, and, you know, mm-hmm. the good and the bad. And that makes you more relatable rather than this hot guy who like is looking for love on The Bachelorette. And I think other people like Caelynn, and you see this with cast members, they're just so afraid of it that any moment of not looking good, they start editing themselves. And
Becca Tilley texted me like a week or 2 ago, and she was really pissed off at me. She goes, Dean, you need to stop retweeting negative things about you. Because I would literally see people tag me in a tweet and be like, Dean's such a piece of shit for dumping Caelynn on her birthday or something like that. And I'd be like, retweet. I am a piece of shit. Fuck it. I'm controlling this narrative.
Yes, take back the power.
I tend to do that too, and I get criticized on my Instagram. But for the same reason because the flip side is retweeting compliments, and that just looks weird, douchey and weird. And then there's a flip side of retweeting the negative stuff, because what happens when you do that?
It just kind of feeds into this idea that you are this negative person. That's like the one downside is like people start to see.
You have people who defend you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right?
Of course.
You kind of... And it shows like it makes, honestly, it probably makes you more human.
Right.
I get Becca's point of view that you are a great guy and you sometimes bask in that, but I get why you do it. I've done that too.
Yeah. There was this one that was like a retweet for Connor and like for Dean, and I was like, yeah, I'll retweet that right away, real fast.
Which made you more likable,
and it made the comment get more likes because my followers all saw it. I'm playing chess. You know?
Oh,
how are you and Connor?
Oh, we're fine. We actually saw each other at the reunion. It was funny. I guess I can share the story. I don't see why not. I walked up to him. I was like, hey man, like it's nice to meet you. You're even more handsome in person than you are on television and from a distance, because I only saw him from a distance on the beach that one time. we didn't really talk much, and then the reunion happened, and he like tried to talk shit, but I was like, I don't know if he really tried to talk shit actually.
To your face?
No, he was like, I just don't see why you left with this guy, to Caelynn. And then Chris Harrison asked me like, what do you think of it? I was like, well, look, I get it. Like Connor's this really incredibly good looking dude. I was terrified. I was like building him up. And then after the show, I like shook his hand. I was like, hey, like it's nice to officially like formally meet you. And he leans over and he goes, nice to meet you too, man. I would really love to see the van sometime. I've been thinking about doing the van life myself. And I go, bro, you can't say that because you've been talking shit about my van nonstop on The Bachelor in Paradise. And then I DM'd him actually a little bit afterwards. I was just like reiterating like, hey, nice to meet you. Best of luck with everything moving forward. And he was like, yeah, congratulations on the van life. Like, I'm super jealous of the van life. And I'm like, well, are you jealous of it or do you want to talk shit about it? Which one is it? You know what I mean?
I really feel like this is an opportunity here to help Connor get a van and be travel buddies.
I would love that.
Really...
Connor, if you're listening to this, you seem like a great guy. I want to be friends. Let's be van buddies.
It sounds like a great show.
Van buddies. Van buddies. Let's get Connor.
With Dean and Connor.
And I will say, I think that part of the reason he was dogging the van so hard is because you know how it is. Like, you got a producer behind the camera feeding you like, Connor, this dude lives in his fucking van and your girl's going to leave with him? And Connor goes, this guy lives in a fucking van and she's going to leave. Like, he's basically repeating what he's being.
Yeah, listen, in that world, we play off they play off our insecurities. We play off our own insecurities. Connor was a guy who had a crush on a girl who's some other guy. And in his mind, you're like an old creepy dude because to every younger guy, anyone who's older is old and creepy. And he was pissed and he was heartbroken. And I think he was really excited about Caelynn and you fucking stomped on his heart.
I love that the way that they played Connor and Whitney's relationship. We had such great conversations
at the wedding. But then Caelynn came over. And
it's like we had such great conversation, and then it like pans to them having a conversation. He goes, "So where are you from? Minnesota? Where are you from? Wisconsin?" And that's the whole conversation.
Wait, Connor's from Wisconsin?
I think so. Michigan, maybe somewhere in the Midwest.
Whitney's from Minnesota.
Oh,
very beautiful girl, very sweet, not the most talkative. Very, very sweet. I really liked Whitney. I thought she was really.
Why'd you dump her then?
We didn't really connect on a conversational level, which is okay.
Yeah. You're not gonna have that with everyone, you know.
But she was a really, I really enjoyed her, and I've run into her a few times, and she's a really, really great person. I've always enjoyed her. Yeah. Well, what else, Rochelle?
Well, I mean, you've been so supportive of Caelynn through all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see. I think it's really sweet.
It was funny watching the show back because Connor was saying things like, he's not going to fight for you, blah, blah, blah. And I was watching it with Caelynn and she looked over at me and laughed and she goes, through all the shit that I've been through, if anything, Connor wouldn't have fought for me through all this shit. And I'm like, she was like grateful that I would. Because like, it does kind of suck to have to like stand up for my girlfriend all the time. And even though like I can't necessarily be telling the world this is my girlfriend.
Right.
And I guess I don't think I was standing up for her, of course, but I was also just, in my opinion, objectively saying how ridiculous a lot of this stuff that was going on was. And so
you're talking about the Blake stuff?
Yeah. So while I was standing up for her, I was also speaking that how I actually honestly felt with all that stuff. But
I mean, we have a few minutes left. Let's tap into that a little quickly. Caelynn is not without criticism this season.
And I told her that many times and she gets pissed off at me every time.
What do you mean that she has had criticism?
I'm just like, I would just be talking about the situation, even like on the phone to like a producer or something with her in the room and be like, yeah, like all this stuff sucks. Like I get it. Like Blake made mistakes. Caelynn's not absolved from all of this stuff. And she would look at me and be like, oh, I would be like, well, you're not innocent.
Does she know that?
She knows it now, but it's just like, it sucks to hear.
I met her. I said that to her and she seemed to handle it.
She's gotten better with it. It just sucks for her. I think she was still adjusting at the time. You know what I mean? Because she's not, and she knows that. And neither's Blake. No one is free of criticism, like you said, in this situation. But
have her and Blake spoken outside of the show, and what kind of terms are they on at this point?
I don't know if I can really answer that question for her, you know?
Nice.
I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's not my place.
Yeah, good for you, Dean.
Great. Yeah, I had to ask.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I would love to answer. I'll answer this after the podcast. But
it's fine. No, you should always respect your relationship.
I'm curious, you're talking about like how you weren't that guy that we saw on The Bachelorette. And I'm just wondering, like, how did you even ended up on The Bachelorette then, if it was like so foreign?
Well, I mean, of course I am that person, but there's also just so much more to me that they didn't show on The Bachelorette, you know? And it's a lot more, it's a lot easier to, it's like, it's more difficult, but it's easier to be in that environment because it's just as like, you have one thing to focus on. That's all you have to focus on. It's just this relationship with this person that you're trying to like marry, essentially. How did I get on the show? My best friend called me a couple years ago and he goes, Dean, I'm going to do something for you. And regardless of what it is, I want you to follow through with it. And I was like, Mike, of course, man. Like I trust you with my life. I'll do whatever it is. An hour later, I get a call from Amy Sugarman, who's our friend. No. And she's like good friends with one of the executive producers. And she like talks to me for an hour and she goes, you're perfect. You're perfect. You're perfect. We're going to get you in touch with the producers. Talk to Megan Firestone, who's another executive producer on the show, for like an hour. And then it was like fast tracked. It was like over the course of a week, I did like the psych, the physical, the meeting with the producers. And then like 3 weeks later, I left for the show. So it was quick. And it was one of those things where I didn't watch the show. I had maybe seen like an episode of JoJo's season with my friend who actually was the one that nominated me. So like I was familiar with it, but I didn't know how it worked. Like before I went to film Bachelorette, I watched like the first 3 episodes of JoJo's season because I was like, I don't know how this works. Like I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Same thing with Paradise. I'd never watched Paradise before going to Paradise. I watched like the first 3 episodes of Paradise.
That's a lot of people. I mean, it's not who's made for The Bachelor who envisioned himself to go on.
Ben Higgins.
I don't know. I mean, I was talking with Grocery Store Joe during our fantasy football draft, and he was talking about his night 1 experience, right? And again, I think it's, especially with the men, it's like 50-50. It's maybe some guys who sign themselves up or they've had a friend, but they're fans. They've watched the show. They've seen it. They go in night 1 and they kind of have their lines they've decided they're going to say. And then you have other people who are just like, I don't know, I'm going to ask to do this thing. And I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And Grocery Store Joe was very much the latter, and probably why he played a little bit too far into that and he got sent home, you know, in the sense that he was like, he told this story and I mean, it was Clay, and it wasn't like he showed up night 1 and he was saying how like, and not to say that Clay was necessarily disingenuous. He just walks up to Joe, who at this time he never met. Clay, this football player, Grocery Joe, and Clay walks up to Joe and goes, I just feel so bad for Becca's heart and you know, for what Ari did to her. And Joe is just like, all right, man, I'm gonna go in the kitchen. I don't know what's going on. And because it was, he just felt like, whose heart and what's happening? I don't know. She's the Bachelorette. She seems to be doing fine. And Clay was just like, kind of almost Bachelor speak, so to speak. Right. I'm not saying whether Clay meant it or not. I don't know. But to a guy like Grocery Store Joe, who's just like, I'm a guy who just sells like produce and this seems weird. Joe wasn't that. And other people seem to fit more. And it's just 50-50.
I will say my experience particularly, if you were to go through the rankings of the contestants on my season, 1 through 30, whatever it is, I was by no means the 4th most qualified person to be with Rachel at the end of my season because I got 4th at my hometowns. I do believe that the only reason I made it as far as I did was because I had a compelling family dynamic. That was my favorite sharing.
Hometown, yeah.
I think like you look at like people like Matt Munson, Adam Gottschalk, these guys who went home much earlier than I did, and you don't remember their names because they didn't make a statement because they're so normal, right? Yeah. And because they're great people, but just because they didn't have maybe as much of a compelling story that they didn't make it quite as far. And so I have bought into the idea that because my family is weird, I made it to hometowns on my season of Bachelorette. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, there's some truth to that. You're selling yourself a little bit short too. Keep in mind that the lead has a say. You know, like people always have these mixed opinions of, I'm not saying Rachel ever thought you were going to be the one. Yeah. But she obviously liked you enough to bring you
It was never weird between us. But,
yes. Yeah. There is that. And I don't know these other guys that you're mentioning them, but she might have been like, I'm not even that interested in getting to know him. It might have been Rachel's interest in like, I don't know, I like looking at him and he has a cool story and he can talk. As the lead, like I've said this before, just ability to hold a conversation is paramount and you can do that and you're not closed off. And that is refreshing on that side of.
I just like look at the parallels between Rachel's season and the person who got 4th on your season. And it's just
like you're like in Corinne's camp. Also interesting, compelling hometown.
You're no Caelynn.
It's not. It doesn't add up. It's not a 1-for-1.
I know you're right. You're right.
Every season's different, but you had a kind of a trailer park family. Not trailer park. That's not. But like you, a gypsy. I don't know. Like you had a compelling. Family hometown, unique. Caelynn had a nanny, you know?
Yeah, very heavily contrasted. We were poor my whole life. She was rich her whole life.
But either way, it was a fascinating storyline. So,
have you already talked about this to death, but or like, did you do a deep dive into why you have those attachment issues? Or do you
I've experienced a lot of loss in my life to people around me, like the close ones. Like my best friend when I was little, my mother, my best friend when I was in college. I think that maybe is where it stems from. I've gone to therapy quite a bit for all of it. I haven't gone recently, and I kind of kick myself a little bit for that. It's hard when I'm traveling so much, but it's something I'm working on.
Yeah.
Do you want to take me traveling?
I'd love to. Where do you want to go? We're supposed to be going to the Caribbean or something like that.
Ben wants to take us to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
I can go to Puerto Rico. I know you invited me to Egypt, and I can't.
Yeah, what the
you
hell?
should go. Egypt, ride a camel.
I want you to take me on a
Let's
trip
go to
I would
Egypt.
never go
Why can't you go to Egypt?
It gives me. I don't know.
Just go, Nick.
It's like in 2 weeks, and I have.
It was short notice.
It was short notice. I'm sorry, I can't.
We'll do the podcast there.
Yeah.
Also, you want to get some tattoos with me?
Yeah, Nick texted me last night, and he goes, "Hey man, do you want to get a bunch of tattoos with me?" I go, "What?"
But say the reason.
I've always kind of thought about getting tattoos, and I never did, and I just feel like it'll like danger me up a little bit.
I think at this point in your life, like you should be proud of the fact you made it 38 years without getting a tattoo.
And now not. The only reason now I get self-conscious about getting one, I don't want to be like, oh, midlife crisis.
Yeah.
But no, I just like I've always,
I mean, let's be real though. You're well past the middle of your life.
Oh. He's not even going to respond.
It's a sensitive subject.
Let's face facts here.
Got a birthday
You think you're
coming
going to
up.
be 76 years old? I don't. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a birthday coming up, and I'm really, I'm not happy about it. Wow, Peter looks hot there.
Peter does look hot.
Peter's hot.
Oh, that's cool. That's my ex-girlfriend. Nice. Oh, there's the Caelynn and me one. Second road.
Oh yeah, this from the tattoo parlor. Cool.
Yeah. So if you could help me with all the things I'm not good at, that'd be.
I'd love that, and you can help me with dating.
Well, how? I mean, I can give you advice, but I can't really help you.
That's all I need is advice.
Yeah, but I mean,
you can help me learn how to wear a fucking suit because you looked fantastic.
True.
I will say I don't do a lot of things right, but I wear the hell out of a suit.
You wore the hell out of that suit.
I really do. I don't know why.
Maybe give me some book streets so I can have as open and diverse of a vocabulary as you.
I don't really have that.
He doesn't read. You don't read. You don't read.
I don't read a ton. I read every day. I just don't read literature.
Books. Yeah.
Per se.
How do you consume your, I guess, news?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Like links to articles. I curate my Twitter for like information, and then I read all these articles, whether it's about politics, sports, the news.
Do you stay up current on politics?
Not a ton. I find politics to be just another reality TV show, to be quite honest, especially now. Yeah. It's a ton of information that get people, a lot of overreactions and all these things. I mean, I find that to be frustrating. I used to be more into politics when I was in college, and then it just was like, it's the same thing.
You want to know what's funny is, this is going to kind of get off topic, but now they're doing a pretty deep dive on contestants' social media before going on the TV show.
Right.
We've seen in years past where there's been some controversial figures.
It's like why they're releasing them early now, right?
I think that might be why.
I think it's part of it.
And so now, because I went back on Bachelor in Paradise this season, they didn't do it my first 3 seasons, but this season they did a deep dive on my Facebook. I had to accept a friend request so this guy could go back to years and years and years. I had a Facebook when I was 15 years old in high school.
Yeah.
I said a lot of dumb things when I was 15 years old.
I bet.
And I had to go and scrub. It was all very harmless. It was like me making fun of my friends on Facebook, whatever. And just out of curiosity, I was like reading some of my old posts, and I was like trashing Barack Obama. Like supporting McCain heavily.
So funny.
And I look back now and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, how was I so conservative back then, but I'm so progressive now, or like so liberal now? You know what I mean?
I don't know why you were. I mean, I don't even, for me, like to identify with Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal. I don't like the label aspect. You pigeonhole yourself and then people latch on. But I know that I had all my points of view from my parents.
Yeah, and like your friends, I guess.
My friends. I joke. Again, even my parents' thought process has changed, and they've become more open-minded. But I thought when Bill Clinton was elected, it was the end of the world because my parents told me it was going to be the end of the world. You know, and again, I'm not here to, you know, when it comes, like I said, I think we spend too much time when it comes to politics of letting it separate us,
putting people in boxes and stuff.
Putting people in boxes, it immediately tells you subconsciously that person is my enemy if you have opposing points of view.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think people have a hard time if they find someone who disagrees with them about a passionate subject. They push them away rather than saying, I would love to learn about your points of view, and have that other person mutually respect the fact that they have differences and say, well, I would also like to understand your points of view, and then do that without raising tensions and pointing fingers, and that almost never happens. And I think that's why I don't like to get into identifying with those things, because you can have beliefs and have a discussion, and until that happens, we won't really ever have progress in those kind of arenas.
I agree. It's also something I'm not passionate enough about to really like care about arguing with someone about. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't find people to be open, so it's like arguing with the wall.
Right. There's no point.
Yeah. Well, Dean, before we let you go, we're gonna play this game called Do You Know Me?
Okay.
Fun little game we like to play with our guests to figure out who between Rochelle and I knows you better.
So
it's real simple. I'm gonna read off a question. You're not going to answer immediately to us. We're going to guess.
Oh, okay, great.
And then at the end, we'll figure out if we know Dean better.
Cool.
First question. Has Dean ever eaten bear meat? Has Dean ever eaten...
Of course he has. He lives in a van.
Bear meat. I think he would eat bear meat. He hasn't eaten bear meat.
In all his adventures, you don't think he's met someone who's like, here, have some of my bear?
I'm going to say no. I think he would if he had the opportunity. I think he would try it, but I don't think he has.
Do people eat bear meat?
Oh, dang it.
Actually, interesting enough, in Finland, it's on the menu at a restaurant where Alon and Bennett ate bear meat.
I've eaten a lot of weird things. I don't think I've ever had bear though.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, Rochelle.
Can Dean play an instrument?
Ooh.
I'm gonna say yes. I bet his family all played together in that school bus.
So just so we're clear, let's like actually play where they really know how.
Yeah, I think they had a family band.
I'm gonna say no.
We each specialize in an instrument: harmonica, banjo, tambourine. No, I did not play an instrument.
Oh, dang it! The Unglerts. That would have been
2-0. Has Dean ever used handcuffs during sex?
Oh, I'm gonna say yes just because I hope it's true. Nick?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you were smiling like you had a secret.
I'm super vanilla in the sack. I just like it missionary. I like it to last about 2 to 6 minutes. I like the lights off.
This is Dean going back to
downplaying it, so no one's ever disappointed.
And I like it to be silent the entire time. So you're both wrong on that one.
Can Dean name 3 of John Mayer's exes?
What are you go first?
I think sure, if he really tries, he can.
I feel like I'm gonna say no, just to say no.
I think Michelle's right on this one. Taylor Swift.
1.
Halle Berry.
No. I don't know. I don't think so.
Selena Gomez.
I don't know.
Wow, Dean. No.
Can you guys name 3?
Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, good for him.
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry, right?
Yeah.
So, all right.
I won.
2-2.
Toe
One
to
more.
toe.
Has Dean ever spanked their partner during sex? It better be a yes.
I'm gonna say, oh, hell yes.
little pat.
I mean, yeah. Obviously. But that goes against what I was just saying. Missionary.
I know.
2 to 6 minutes,
Well,
lights off,
you gotta stick to your narrative, I guess.
Minimal spanking. I have very sensitive butt cheeks. Am I getting spanked or am I spanking other?
You give and you get.
I will say.
You've been spanked?
I will say I got spanked once. years ago, long time ago.
And?
It really weirded me out.
I'm not a huge fan of being dominated in bed.
It wasn't even a dominating thing. It was just like, it just was weird.
Yeah,
a male butt isn't as beautiful as a woman's butt. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be spanked accordingly.
And you have a nice butt for a guy.
I did win my high school superlative, Basalt High School, class of 2009, was best badonkadonk.
What a title.
That's nice.
And me and Heather Nemec, she had a great badonkadonk. Mine was pretty good too.
Wonder what she's up to.
She got married actually last year. Congrats, Heather.
How do you feel about that?
I'm very happy for her. I haven't talked to her since high school, but she's a nice girl.
Final thoughts, Dean. Do you have anything for us?
It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be the fourth male on this podcast behind Brad, Chris, and Tyler. I now see where I fall into the pecking order of Nick's friends.
But not in my heart.
Yes. I'm probably third behind Tyler and then Chris. And now
I don't know. I got to say, I feel like there was a fascination with Tyler with Rochelle, but I feel like she's truly in love with you.
I've just been around longer than Tyler has, you know? So me and Rochelle have gotten...
we go way back.
Yeah.
I think Rochelle would have preferred you to just sit on this couch and talk and have Rochelle ask you questions, and I could have not have showed up.
Can I ask you this? Who do you think the next Bachelor should be? Who do you want it to be?
I don't really have an opinion. I'm fine with Peter.
Has he been announced yet?
I don't think so.
No, next week I think.
But that seems to be the rumor. I know. I mean, listen, we all know and hope that at some point the show has its first person of color as the Bachelor, and I hope it happens soon. I think the show seems to know what they're doing. I don't know. I've never met Mike in person, so I don't know how he would be. How you've met him?
I see that argument be made often, how the Bachelor needs to have a person of color as the lead, and I do agree with it. But I don't think that being a person of color catapults you to the top of the order for it.
I would agree. And again, I've never met Mike in person. From what I hear, he's a really nice guy, but maybe not a good fit for what is required of that role.
And as you said, the producers, and then they all know exactly what they're doing more than anyone else. To reinforce that point, I just don't think that if the number one reason we want you to be the Bachelor is because you're black, then that's not a good enough reason for you to be the Bachelor.
Yeah, but I feel like we know that too. And I hope the show continues to put forth maximum effort to have their first person of color as the Bachelor. And if Mike is the Bachelor, I support it, and it's great. And I assume that will be because to your point, the show thinks that he's ready and he'd be good at it, and he all the things that come with it. It is a TV show, and it's so I'm fine with either. I don't have a preference. Then either way, it won't fix all the problems we have in our country.
Oh, and there are plenty. In addition to that, I would just like to remind you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, to also tune in to Help I Suck at Dating.
There you go.
It's starring me, my good friend Jared, and also Nick's ex-fiancée, Vanessa. And it's a great podcast. We talk about love. We talk about life. We talk about everything you want to hear about. I'm just going to keep on babbling on about my podcast while I'm still recording this podcast.
Fine. We're just going to cut it out.
I know you are.
Have you ever been on that, Nick?
I
hosted it.
Oh, nice. But not with Vanessa on it?
Not with Vanessa, no.
There was a point where I asked Nick to... Oh, no, I just asked you to promote an episode, but I didn't ask you to come on and be
I think I did. I mean, do anything you asked me to, Dean. Speaking of which, how are you liking your essential oils?
I love my essential oils. They make the van smell... I love the lavender scent the most.
Release. I mean, there's lavender in a few of them, but
the release and the release
helps you sleep.
It does. It helps me sleep. And the nice thing about the van is it's such a small space that I don't need much, and so it just there you go, overtakes me. It makes me feel comfortable.
Dean, thanks for coming.
Nick, thanks for having me.
I love you. I look forward to our many adventures together. I hope that includes traveling and tattoos.
Egypt. We got tattoos in Egypt.
Think of all the Instagram pics you could have in Egypt.
Rochelle's just projecting how much she wants to go to Egypt with you.
No, I think you should.
All three of us could go.
Yeah, I'll come.
I'm grateful to be relevant enough again to be on this podcast with you. So
no, I really appreciate you as a friend, and your time, I think, on this season is one I thought was refreshing, and I hope more people in the future who go on this show take a page out of your playbook of just being their truest self. and not try to worry too much about how that might come across, for better or worse.
Right. Because no matter how it comes across, it's you.
Yeah.
So there's no point in trying to pretend to be anyone else. Thank you again for having me. I love you as always. And that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, once again, guys, thanks for listening. It's been fun. We will see you next Monday for another episode of Ask Nick. Until then, don't forget to rate us 5 stars. Make sure to follow Dean Unglert on Instagram and check him out at Help I Suck at Dating. It's been another great week, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.